Hello, and welcome to Boarding All Captains, the official study abroad podcast. On this week's episode, I have our advisor, Kelsey Kelley, with me, and today we're just going to talk a little bit more about what she does in the office and kind of her experience with the study abroad industry. So, to get started, how did you even get started in the study abroad field?
Yeah. So I was actually an economics major, and I was taking an environmental economics class, and my teacher for that class was also the study abroad advisor. So she said she had an internship, and she made that announcement at the beginning of class, and I was like, oh yeah, I need to actually have an internship before I graduate, so I'll just go ask her about it. And so I asked, and nobody else applied, so I pretty much just slid into the student worker role at the study abroad office. And I didn't know that I was going to fall in love with it and it was going to change my entire career plan at the time. I was just like, I'm going to check a box and then move on. And it ended up changing my life.
Very cool.
Yeah.
And so what college did you go to?
Longwood University in Farmville, Virginia.
Okay.
Shout out to Dr. Marks, who is still there and is still involved in study abroad.
Wow, very committed.
Yeah.
So before that, had you studied abroad before, or you just went ahead and got the job and then grew your passion from there?
Yeah, so I had not actually studied abroad at the time that I worked in the office. So I was there for the spring semester of my sophomore year. And then I actually got a scholarship to study abroad. And that's when I was like, oh, hey, okay, well, then I can do this. So I went to Thailand and I went to France all in the same summer.
Wow. Yeah. And then, so that was just the whole summer? And then did you have like any other experiences traveling while you were a student at Longwood?
Yeah. So to answer your first question, I went for 3 weeks to Thailand.
Okay,
took basically
cool.
a faculty-led, so similar to the CNU-led programs here. And then like 2 weeks after that, I left for France. And that was a 6-week program, which was more like an exchange program where I took business classes.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Very cool.
And I actually studied abroad one more time in the Dominican Republic, and that was a service learning spring break trip in my junior year of college.
Yeah, very well traveled. So what did you do in the Dominican Republic? Like, what is, for viewers that might not know, what is like a service kind of?
Yeah, so instead of like getting academic credit, I went and I helped to basically build a community and like played with the kids, honestly, was my main thing that I did. But we were also working a little bit with building houses as well. But my main role while I was there was just like playing with the kids and giving the parents a break. And it was a really awesome experience.
Very cool. And then by your senior year, had you kind of realized that like study abroad was the field that you wanted to go into?
Yeah, so I had this aha moment one day when I was working in the study abroad office, like, because I had had a great day and I was having appointments with students, and I was like, wait a minute, being a study abroad advisor is a full-time job. I could do this for my entire life if I wanted to. And then that's what made me go down the path of international education. So I went from wanting to be an environmental economist to wanting to be a study abroad advisor.
Wow,
so that's why I went and got my master's degree in international education and policy management, and then went on to work with international students and
right, and that was at NC State. You worked with some international students there, and then you found yourself here with us.
I did.
Yay, awesome. Thank you so much for sharing a little bit more about like your background in study abroad. How did studying abroad help you grow academically and personally?
Oh my gosh, so much. So on the personal side of things, before I went, I was super shy and did not really have a whole lot of experience making friends. I really was more focused on like my core group of friends and didn't branch out much. But going abroad, I kind of had to go out of my comfort zone and meet new people. And it really helped me to grow and realize like, yeah, I can do this. I can be social. I can make more friends. And from that point on, it was a much easier process for me. So that's the biggest change for me personally.
Yeah, I know Kelsey as a very social person, so could never imagine you as quiet.
Well, once upon a time, before study abroad. And then academically and professionally, I mean, it literally became my career. So I really learned, like, I love cultural exchange. I love meeting new people. I love, like, learning in different styles. So it was really a confirmation of what I already suspected at that point of, like, I really love study abroad, and I want to continue that as a career path.
Yeah, I feel that in an aspect. I mean, I work at the study abroad office, so love study abroad. Maybe one day, we'll see. But Going off of that, though, how do students at CNU kind of get started with the process to study abroad? Like, what does that look like?
Yeah, absolutely. So the main way students to do it is they talk to me during our walk-in hours. So those are from 11 to 1 on Fridays, and then from 3 to 5 on Wednesdays. And so students literally can just walk into the presentation room and sit down and say, I want to study abroad, help me start the process. No other research required. Just come and talk to me, and I will ask you some more questions about yourself if you're a student, and then figure out what you want to do. And we'll just take it from there.
Cool. And so what is the time to apply for programs look like? That type of thing. Deadlines. When should people start even thinking about studying abroad if they come in their freshman year?
Yeah, I mean, definitely sooner the better, because especially if you want to go for a longer period like a semester, we want to make sure we're carefully planning out your classes before and after your study abroad experience, as well as during, to make sure that you're graduating on time and meeting your personal and professional goals. But I mean, the minimum is the semester before you're planning to go. So if a student wanted to go in the summer, come talk to me in the spring. If a student wants to go for the fall semester, also come talk to me in the spring. Just make sure you're giving us plenty of time to talk to your professors and figure out your grades.
Yeah, and so some of our students kind of know the difference between we as CNU faculty, I'm not obviously CNU faculty, but professors will lead programs in the summer.
Yes.
And so we have lots of those, but then also what does it look like to go with an external partner? That type of thing.
Yeah. So for a non-CNU program, we basically take a look at the websites of those programs and see what classes they're offering and what the dates are, and then make a decision from there about whether that works well for the student. And in a lot of cases, if a student can't take a specific class during a summer through CNU, they'll be really excited to go to one of our external partners and take a class that they wouldn't otherwise be able to take here at CNU.
And summer programs are so great because it allows students to kind of get ahead on their major and either graduate early or pick up another minor like I did. So yeah, definitely semester. Part of me wishes I went for a whole semester.
Me too.
But I love CNU so much, so I'm glad that I did just go for a summer. But it allowed me to get ahead as well and also pick up a third minor, so that was pretty awesome. Yeah.
And honestly, elective credits are a beautiful opportunity for study abroad as well. If someone wants to just go paint in Florence, I'll send you to paint in Florence. We've approved that class. It's good to go. You don't have to take something for your major or your minor. You can just do something for fun.
Yeah, a lot of people sometimes that ends up being in their boat is if they didn't plan ahead of sometimes there's a couple of electives that they still need and a certain program fulfills it, so they're able to go to another country and not, especially majors that are a little bit more difficult to do abroad, like neuroscience or computer science or something like that. Sometimes it's really great for those majors to do those electives, correct?
Absolutely. And also the area of inquiries and the liberal learning also are widely available abroad because it's something so many students have to take across the globe. So it's easy to plug our students into those classes that are already being taught abroad, and then they can fulfill those requirements here at CNU.
Yeah, very cool. A major misconception that a lot of students might have is not being able to study abroad in non-English predominantly speaking countries because they don't speak the language there. What does that look like with the language barriers, and how do you guys help combat that barrier?
Yeah, so I think a lot of students don't realize that English is spoken in a lot of places, and also we would only have you be taking a class in a foreign language if that's something you're specifically looking to do. So if you want to take a Gaelic class in Ireland, that may be possible, but you don't have to know Gaelic to be in Ireland because they also speak English. Same with somewhere like Spain. Yes, you can go to Spain and practice your Spanish language skills, but so many people also speak English because it is a tourist industry there, and you can take classes in both English and Spanish simultaneously in order to grow your Spanish while you're there. You don't have to already be fluent or be an expert by any means. We've sent students to Spanish-speaking countries who have had zero Spanish before, and they've been just fine.
Very cool. So when you were abroad in Thailand, do you feel like you faced any language barriers there, or for the most part, people spoke English?
That's
Yeah.
a great example of how you really don't need to know the language because I do not speak any Thai and I didn't then either, but it was so easy to get around because we had a tour guide and also my professor like knew enough to get us around as well. So I really didn't need to know English to be in Thailand for 3 weeks.
Yeah.
And it was just such a great experience.
I think that's part of the fun as well, is going to another country that sometimes speaks another language. Is, it pushes you out of your comfort zone a little bit because you're having to communicate with people that, like, a lot of people do speak English, but if not, like, you're having to communicate with people like in a different way in order to communicate your needs or that type of thing. So I think that's another great example of like pushing people out of their comfort zone a little bit, but it ends up being really rewarding in the end.
Exactly. Like I did not know much French at the time I went. I'd only taken like 2 classes, the equivalent of like 102 is as far as I'd gotten for French at that point. So I definitely struggled to say some things, and I made a few French people like irritated at me, but for the vast majority they were willing to practice French with me, and some would just switch to English knowing that clearly from my accent that I was not a natural French speaker, and it was just a great opportunity to like figure out other ways to communicate things like nonverbal cues and hand signals in order to ask where the bathroom was, for example.
Yeah. Very cool. So then working at the study abroad office, like, what is kind of your favorite thing? Do you get to travel there still, or what's the coolest thing that you get to do?
Yeah, so there's like a 2-part answer to this. So I love traveling, obviously being a study abroad advisor, and I do get to go to one international destination a year as a part of my job. So last time I went to Scotland to help the students who were in Scotland for the semester, and it was so cool to get to actually be at the University of Glasgow and to like experience what they experience. Even just for the 10-day period I was there, I fell in love with Scotland, and it was so much fun. So that's a wonderful part of my job. And then the other part that I get to experience more frequently is that aha moment when a student falls in love with a program. That is just magical when you're talking to a student and you bring up the website and they're like, oh yeah, this is possible, this is so cool, this is exactly what I want to do and where I want to go, and you're like, great, let's fill out the forms. But it's just so awesome to see that moment of like, oh yeah, this is for me.
Right. Yeah, and it's also like you love travel, you love study abroad, so being able to help other students, I'm sure, find that same love and get excited about programs, I'm sure that's really fulfilling as well.
It's so fulfilling. Yeah.
Coming from an advisor's perspective, what is one of the biggest advantages or benefits of studying abroad?
Yeah, I mean, gosh, there are so many. Like, we could literally have an entire podcast episode dedicated to the benefits of studying abroad. But some off the top of my head of you get to meet new people. It is an excellent resume builder. I mean, employers are looking for someone who can multitask and plan ahead, and studying abroad absolutely requires both of those skills. So being able to tell someone that you went somewhere, even if it's just for 3 weeks, is very impressive on a resume. And then a third one that I would say is really just self-discovery. Going abroad and learning more about yourself, what you like, what you don't like, what you can push yourself to do is an incredible experience.
Yeah, that's kind of reminds me of just like even when I've put study abroad on my resume, it kind of catches the employer's attention by being like, they ask me, oh, you studied abroad in Brussels? What was that like? Yeah. And it kind of helps you stand out a little bit compared to other applicants. So it's definitely not only a like resume builder, but also it tells employers that you are able to be in another country and independent, but also bridge cultural connections and find common ground with people that you might not seem alike, but you were able to fit in eventually. So
absolutely.
Yeah, very cool. And then what's just like one tip that you have for students that are looking to possibly study abroad?
Yeah, so I would say get a passport is my number one tip, because regardless of when you're going abroad, you're going to need a valid passport.
Right.
So if you have a passport right now and you're listening, go look at it and see when it expires, and if it's soon, go get it renewed. And if you don't even have one yet, go fill out the paperwork. It's not a hard process, and they're valid for 10 years.
Yeah.
So it's not something you have to do all the time,
right?
But it opens literally the door for you to go and explore and learn.
That is really good advice, because there's lots of students who will come in and they'll be like, I want to go, but they haven't gotten a passport yet. So that's kind of the biggest thing of helping students get that passport, because otherwise, you can't go abroad. So
Absolutely.
Definitely a great piece of advice. Well, Kelsey, I really appreciate you coming on to our podcast for the Study Abroad office.
Happy to be here.
Yeah, and thank you. I'm sure the viewers really appreciated all the advice and that you gave, and also getting to know you a little bit more personally. So,
yeah.
Thank you.
You're so welcome.